The other challenge is called the intellectual challenge. We have several challenges. One is an intellectual challenge that the Muslims have to face. And what is this intellectual challenge? Let me just name a few of them that has happened to the Muslims. The intellectual challenge includes that Muslims have allowed themselves to be dominated in many ways. And we have to reverse this. Reversing the conspiracy of the kuffar. What is their conspiracy from an intellectual point of view? Domination of the media. Domination over the educational institutions, just like this one. Establishing schools and universities directly supervised by kafirs in their own countries. Setting up parties that adopt Western civilization to oppose Islam. Sponsoring those whom they call the elite to give fatwas against the Quran and the Sunnah. Funding the educational scholarships, that is, giving Muslims funding to come to institutions so their minds can be contaminated, penetrated, so that they can be dominated, so that when they go back to their families, they don't know their families and their families don't know them. Destroying the Arabic language so that Muslims feel ashamed to speak the Arabic language. Because once the Muslim feels ashamed to speak the Arabic language, it means that they feel proud to speak another language. When you feel proud to speak another language, another foreign language, but you feel reserved in speaking Arabic, you have destroyed your whole foundation. Your relationship with the Quran and the Sunnah is destroyed. And your love for the ulama and the fuqaha has been destroyed. Then there is the economic challenge that comes in the form of dominating all the raw materials in the Muslim countries so that the Muslims themselves, they don't even own the natural resources in their countries any longer. I'll give you an idea. I'll give you an instance. In 1974, Nigeria was the third largest oil producing nation in the world. Today, Nigeria does not own its own oil reserves, which is still the third largest in the world, but BP and Shell and Exxon owns all the rights of the oil in Nigeria. They take the oil out of it, and after that they sell it back to the Nigerian government. Who did that? The IMF and the World Bank. These are the kafirs we're dealing with. Second, making the dollar, whether it is the Australian dollar or the French dollar, or we call them dollars, but we know they call them different currencies, making the currency in the West prevalent as a source of value and eliminating the gold. Because when gold becomes the standard, the countries who have the gold become what? The possessors of the wealth. But they tricked the world and they took the currency and made it the wealth. And so then they took the wealth, paper dollars, and then they took and bought the gold from those countries with paper. So they took the gold and they own it now. All the gold is in Fort Knox and some other places, and they gave those people currency. Then after they gave them the currency, they depreciated the currency through wars. Then they told them now you can borrow more currency, okay, at 20%. And so now they own the country. Devils. Tricksters. Continuing to make developing countries markets for consumption. So the Muslims become consumer societies. They don't produce anything. Drowning the development countries with compound interest through the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. And we can go on, but we don't have the time. Dealing with political struggle. The first and foremost challenge that has to be reversed was the destruction of the Khilafah in 1924. Because even when the Muslim Khilafah, that is the global Islamic state administration, leadership, even when it was corrupt, even when it was weak, Still the head was on the body. And the Muslims had a reference, meaning that a strong person could become the Khilafah and then the strength will come back. But now that the head is decapitated from the body, it doesn't matter whether it's a strong person or not. How can a body move around and govern anyone without a head on the shoulders? So this was one. In addition to that, the establishment of the Jewish state in Palestine, to use it as a satellite to control that part of the world that has 2/3 of the oil reserves for the entire planet. It's simple. It was a geopolitical economic move. It has nothing to do with race or culture or religion. No more so than the issue in Iraq has to do with Saddam Hussein. The issue is purely geopolitical economic. Today, if war erupts in Iraq, more than 3,000 missiles will be rained upon Iraq in the course of 6 hours, and more than 500,000 people will be killed. Can you tell me how the lives of 500,000 people are equal to a leader, Saddam Hussein? If America was able to go into South America and pull out, what was the guy's name? General Noriega. America was selling drugs with Noriega, but then Noriega flipped on them. So they went in and took this man from his country, brought him out, and put him in jail for life in their country. So why didn't they just go into Iraq and pull out Saddam? No, they need to go into Iraq. Why? Because you'll find that in a matter of 6 months after the war, the prices in the oil will go down. And as we speak right now, there are 27 mega companies who are bidding for contracts for the reconstruction of Iraq. What does it have to do with Saddam Hussein and democracy? Fourth, implementing their own political systems in order to replace the system and the possibility of Islam. Also, dividing the Muslim community, dividing the Muslims into independent states, giving them their own so-called sovereignty. You see, they told each one of them, you can have your own sovereignty. Why you need a khilafah? You will have your own sovereignty, make your own king. But you will buy our goods. We will float our currency. Your money and your gold will be controlled by us, and our banks will interact and set up banks in your country, and we will control the industry in your country. So you only need sovereignty. And then what they did is they give those people whom they choose as leaders as much as they want to fill their stomachs and their houses, and they create poverty among the people, among the masses. The challenge that Muslims have also includes a military alternative. In Islam, there is a military alternative. We don't say it's an alternative that we resort to without knowledge, without a basis. No, we don't say that. Not with emotion, but no one can eliminate jihad from the options, from the mandate of Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to us in the Quran, هَلْ أَدُلُّكُمْ عَلَى تِجَارَةٍ تُنْجِيكُم مِّنْ عَذَابٍ عَلِيمٍ تُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَتُجَاهِدُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ بِأَمْوَالِكُمْ وَأَنفُسِكُمْ